It was supposed to be a high-profile yet fairly light-hearted interview. Meghan Markle, always a magnet for attention, had been invited to sit down with Jon Stewart on his live show. The booking alone was enough to generate buzz, with commentators speculating whether she would use the platform to speak about her projects, her family, or her ongoing struggles with the press. Nobody expected the conversation to collapse into one of the most uncomfortable and talked about moments of the year. From the moment Meghan walked onto the stage, the audience erupted in applause. She smiled confidently, clearly used to the flashing lights and the scrutiny. Jon Stewart greeted her warmly, but there was a mischievous look in his eyes, the kind that longtime viewers knew meant he had sharp questions lined up. The first few minutes were harmless. Stewart joked about California living, about British tea versus American coffee, and about the endless fascination the world had with the royal family. Meghan laughed politely and responded with charm, but as the interview moved forward, Jon began steering the conversation into deeper waters. He asked about the couple's decision to step away from royal duties. Meghan delivered the well-rehearsed answer she had given many times before. It was about freedom, family, and mental health. Stewart nodded, but instead of moving on, he pushed harder. "But don't you think," he said with a raised eyebrow, "that some people look at you and Harry and see not freedom, but privilege dressed up as a struggle? You left one palace for another, just in a different zip code." The audience laughed nervously. Meghan's smile faltered just slightly. "It's not about palaces or houses," she responded carefully. "It's about having control over our lives." Stewart didn't back off. "Sure, but you're doing deals with streaming services, you're signing contracts worth millions, you're producing documentaries. To the average person working 2 jobs just to pay rent, how do you think your definition of struggle really comes across?" Meghan's posture stiffened. She countered by talking about her passion for philanthropy and advocacy, saying that the platform she and Harry had built allowed them to shed light on issues that otherwise might not get attention. Stewart leaned back, arms crossed, and asked, "But isn't there a difference between shining a light and standing in the spotlight yourself?" The crowd reacted with a mix of laughter and gasps. Meghan tried to maintain her composure, insisting that her work wasn't about self-promotion but about impact. Stewart pressed again. "Then why does it always feel like the story comes back to you? Every time there's an interview, it's about how tough life has been for you, how unfair the media has been to you. Isn't there a danger that instead of highlighting causes, you're just highlighting yourself?" This time, Meghan bristled. Her voice lost some of its calmness as she replied, with respect, "Jon, I think that's an unfair characterization. I've spent years advocating for women, for mental health, for equity. To reduce that to some narrative about self-promotion ignores the work being done." Stewart nodded but kept going. "But don't you think critics have a point when they say you and Harry wanted all the benefits of being royal without the responsibilities? I mean, you can't exactly be half in, half out." The atmosphere in the studio shifted. The laughter from the audience turned uneasy. Meghan's expression hardened. She defended her choices, pointing to the pressures of the monarchy, the relentless media attacks, and the toll it had taken on her family. But Stewart wasn't finished. He leaned forward and asked the question that triggered the meltdown. "You talk a lot about wanting privacy, but then you do high-profile interviews, release a Netflix series about your life, and write books. How do you square that? Isn't there a contradiction there?" Meghan's face tightened. Her voice rose slightly as she shot back. "There's no contradiction in telling our story on our own terms instead of having it twisted and exploited by tabloids. Wanting privacy doesn't mean silence. It means having agency." Stewart raised his hands, almost theatrically. "Agency, sure. But doesn't privacy mean not broadcasting every detail to millions of people? It feels like you want to control the narrative, not escape it." That was the breaking point. Meghan's frustration boiled over. "You have no idea what it's like to live under constant attack, to be lied about every day, to have your children's safety threatened," she said sharply. "If you think that's something to mock or question, then maybe you're part of the problem too." The audience fell silent. Jon Stewart, for once, looked genuinely taken aback. He tried to lighten the moment with a quick joke, but Meghan wasn't having it. She pulled off her microphone and said, "I came here for a real conversation, not to be ridiculed under the guise of comedy." Gasps echoed through the studio as she stood up and walked off stage. Producers scrambled, cameras cut awkwardly, and the show went to an early commercial break. It was a meltdown in real time, one that left viewers stunned and commentators scrambling for words. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation spread across social media. Hashtags like #MeghanMeltdown and #StewartExposes trended worldwide. Supporters of Meghan argued she had been ambushed, that Stewart had crossed the line from interviewer to heckler. Critics, however, claimed Stewart had simply asked the questions everyone wanted answered and that Meghan couldn't handle the heat. News outlets dissected the moment from every angle. Some hailed Stewart for